Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we find ourselves back in the year 1431 in Ming, China. The emperor is dead, and whispers of dissent echo through the court. Now you stand alongside an aging Admiral Zheng He, the greatest maritime explorer of East Asia, as he embarks on his final voyage to the West Ocean. Now you'll be trying to reverse the Empire's fate and define your legacy by sailing, trading, combat, exploring, negotiating, and constructing to bring back prestige and profit while attaining open and secret objectives, building the porcelain tower, and writing the most captivating story of exotic encounters. Ultimate Voyage, Final Quest for the Treasure Fleet, is an action selection thematic expedition game for 1 to 4 players. It takes 1 to 2 hours to play. It's for ages 14 and up, and it's published by Little Monks. Now it's being crowdfunded right now, so I'm going to show you how it works, and I'll see you on the other side. This is a crowdfunding preview, so all the art and components you see here, they're not final, they're prototypes. To see the most up-to-date art and components, check the link in the description of this video. Now, at the beginning of the game, each player is going to, in reverse turn order, be able to draft or select a character mat. So the interpreter, diviner, healer, merchant, navigator, commander. Each of them are different. They each have different starting porcelain and troops. They have special abilities and such. And so there's some asymmetry here right from the start. Now here's the board set up for 4 players. You use different amount of regions depending on the amount of players. And this is going to be a high-level overview showing you the main concepts of the game. This is not a full rules video. The game is played over 9 rounds, with each of these rounds being a season. And each of those rounds is broken down into an administrative phase and an action phase. I'm going to jump into the action phase to show you what you're trying to do throughout the game. You try to have the most points in the end, and one of the main ways is there is a prestige track and a profit track. The lower of these 2 tracks is going to give you straight points at the end. So the more even you are on those, the better you'll do. You're also going to be getting points from completing objectives. There's many different ones in the game, so each game's going to be different. Like for example, you get to place one of your cubes here when you perform 1 successful combat in one of these 2 regions. And if you do it twice, you actually get to claim this card and a new one would come out. So it's a little bit of a race where you can see people making progress on these, but typically like on these ones, when you've done this twice, you get the claim and all the markers are removed from that. So you're sort of beating them to the punch of that goal. Another big way to get points is story points. Now, each region is depicted down here. We'll show you how you get some of these story points later, but let's say you got a single story point. You would go like this. Let's say another player then got a single one. They jump over you because yours doesn't count there. They should have learned from your stories. And then let's say a third player did, like this. And let's say now this blue player got one. They'd go here. Now the trick is, whoever is furthest along at the end of the game, for each region is going to score the higher points. Like this player is going to get 4, but only if they've at least gotten to 4. So here the max they'd get is 4. Each other player is going to get 2. Since both of them have gotten to 2, they would both get 2 points. If this orange player was here, let's say it ended up like this. This blue player is the furthest along, but then didn't even get to 4, so they get 3. This player gets 2 because that's the max. This player only gets 1 because they didn't even make it to 2. So that's sort of how that works, and they score that like that for every region. Now here is the Porcelain Tower of Nanjing, and this is a board that you're going to be placing different porcelain pieces of the tower on there to score points at the end of the game. Now as you return your ship to Nanjing, you're going to be placing these, and you're going to get a point for each one of these that you have in the end. You're also going to be able to place more of these for the amount of tributary relations that you have. I'll go more about this in detail, but you're trying to get some of these. Each of these is worth a point at the end as well. Now each player is going to have a certain amount of action cards that you're going to take throughout your turn, and you're going to take one of these actions, and this is one of the most important parts of the game, is the action selection is very important because from left to right, by default, they have a strength. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I take a sail action, normally I would be able to do it 5, but it actually starts with a +1 sail, so we could actually take an action with 6 strength, where diplomacy is only 1 right now at this round. And you'll see as rounds go on, different things that you don't use become more powerful. They slide up and things like that. You also start with porcelain and troops. These are resources of the game that you'll be using. Now, there's many things that can affect the strength. As you saw, I have an upgraded 1 sail. But you can also spend resources in order to do so. For example, when I'm sailing, which is this green action, I actually have to spend 1 porcelain and 1 troop, and that's going to allow me to get an additional strength. But I would have to get a total of 3 of them to get +2 strength, or 6 of each to get +3 strength. And so you can use resources to get strength. Also, as a fillback mechanism. You can always select an action card instead of actually doing an action. You can actually gain resources depending on the strength of what that card would have been. So when you're stuck and need some resources, you can get them easily that way as well. Also at the beginning of the round, these 3 dice were rolled, and these are going to be adjustments. And those deity dice essentially are shown here, 0, plus 2, minus 1. When you select an action, you'll select one of these. I have quite a bit of sail, so maybe I use this one, and I get minus 1 to my total action strength. And again, I could have used these as well. There's also different places, like if you start from Nanjing, you actually get a plus 2 to that strength as well. Now, as you're sailing, you're going to be crossing lines and going through different zones. If it's a big region line like this, it costs an additional strength to go. And then depending on the wind, sometimes it'll be worse or heavy, like blue or yellow. This is blue because we're going this way. And sometimes depending on the round and the winds, it'll cost you more or less strength. So that you have to take that into account as well. For example, in a yellow round, the winds will be going in a certain direction, and the blues, they go in the other direction. Now, when you get to a specific port, if there's no affiliation there, you'll roll the sun die, and you'll go up or down that much here, like it starts here. And this is the affiliation. This is plus 1, so it goes up like this. If it ever gets to the bottom, they're hostile, and essentially you'll have to, basically they're going to be having combat with you next turn. If you get all the way to the top, you basically have tributary to them. Now, in addition, when sailing, if you came from a different region and they're not hostile, you'll get an encounter. And these will be all sorts of different things. Like you could ignore the blacksmiths and place a card at the bottom of the deck, or you could hire them by spending 2 of the porcelain, and you get plus 1 to all your future combat actions. And there's all different things in here, like maybe there's bribery, which if you refuse, you'd have to go down 1 in the relations with that port. Small gift, hey, you go up 1. Big gift, you go up 3. So there's different ways of raising those up. Like if this was there and we did spend that 3 and we went up 3 more, that is when we would get some tributary relations with them. So that would actually get replaced with our marker, and we would get a story point here. And remember, this is the way to get a lot of these points at the end of the game, by having the furthest one along on the different story point tracks in each region. Now, moving up this prestige track again is important, and you actually get to move up there plus 1 for every point of improvement of affiliation that you did with a non-military action. So we would have been able to move up that prestige track as well. Now also, once my ship is here, we're going to reveal these trade tiles so that everyone can see what's there. And we see all sorts of different things here. And this, you'll be able to get these with a certain amount of strength, as it shows you in the upper left. And you can be getting things like exotic animals. This will be worth 2 points in the end, but only for each unique one. So if I got another rhino, it wouldn't be 2 plus 2, it'd just be 2. So one of the things is set collecting different trade goods. So there's all different types of trade goods that you can get, and some of them give you sort of, points at the end of the game, and some things do have different effects. For example, again, if you had a unique rhinoceros and you got this, you'd go 2 on that prestige track. Here you'd get 2 on the profit track, the pink track up there. Now, how do you get these? You take the trade action, and again, this is the strength that you need. You need to be here, and you can at most get 1 of these trade goods for that action, but you're using strength in order to get some of these. Now, again, let's say it's the next player's turn, comes back to us. Again, you could take any of these actions, strength 1, 2, 3, or 4 by default, select one of these. You can even take an action you've already taken this round for a default strength of 0. So essentially, you're going to be using 3 of these cards as actions, and then once all of these are gone, we've used them all, that will end up being the end of the action phase once everyone has done that. But I'm just going to jump through what some of these different actions do for you. Now, in addition to your normal action, you have an auxiliary actions like scouting, which allows you to secretly look at trade goods that haven't been revealed in a certain same region that you're in. So you can secretly look at these. Maybe you find some other animals like this one, not only get you up the prestige track, but also get you a story point for that region. Maybe you go here to get the manuscript, not only you get a story point, but you'll also get some wild knowledge. Let's talk about knowledge. Now, sometimes you want to explore, and this is going to allow you to use a certain amount of strength to gain these knowledge cubes from here, and getting them requires a certain amount of strength, depending on how many you want, and then you can use this knowledge once you've gotten them. So you might spend three different colored pieces of knowledge to gain a new objective card. You'd get to take some off the top of the deck, 3 different cards, and keep one of them. That's an objective that only you'll be able to do. Maybe you do 3 of the same color that allows you to upgrade an action. Flip the action card, get a better version of it. Or you might do as many as you want of the same color, and then that gives you a free action of any of the types using the strength depending on the amount of knowledge that you used. So different ways to use actions and such. Sometimes you'll be using the diplomacy action to have strength greater than the strength of the port. This has a strength of 3 because there's 3 possible knowledges here. And you'll be able to move this up. The difference between your strength and the strength of the port, again, trying to get possibly the tributary relations with them or moving this up. And you will get story points if you get them all the way to the tributary, depending on the port's strength. And sometimes you'll be using diplomacy against different encounters that come up as well. Now, sometimes you'll want to have combat with certain ports. Sometimes you'll be forced to. Again, if this ever gets down to hostile, you'll have to do combat against them the next turn. But here we have a strength of 3. You roll a moon die. They're at a strength of 5 because you add the 2 to it. Then you have your strength, and if yours is greater than that total strength, then a lot of good things will happen. You'll get story points, as we talked about. You'll also get to have tributary relations, as we talked about that earlier, and you'll also get 2 move-ups on your prestige and profit tracks. You get to split them up or put them on the same track. But if you lose, you'll have to get rid of resources for each strength you're short, first troops, and if you run out, then it's going to be the porcelain as well. And there's other negative effects like losing prestige, and this is going to be hostile and things like that. You can also fight with another ship, and you can essentially fight with them together, and you gain or lose rewards pretty much essentially the same. Now, in addition to or by itself, when you play this action, you can construct things. So you can split your strength between combat and construction any way you see fit. And you can do different things. You can build a kiln or a training camp, and that's for each of those in those areas, you'll get an extra resource of those during the administration phase. Or you can build a depot. There can only be 1 at each port, and then when you take action at this port, you get +2 strength. Now, earlier we talked about the importance of the strength, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by default. But at the end of the action phase, before you set up for next round, one of the things you're going to be doing is resetting these cards. These are the 3 that I used. Now, the ones I didn't use will now be on the right in the same order. So now this one is my highest strength, second highest. These ones go to the left of those, the ones I use, and I can put these sort of in any order. So it kind of resets which actions you're selecting, which one's going to have the most default strength there. Now, after you've taken all your actions, you go to the administration phase of the next round. I'm not going to go through all this, but it's mostly bookkeeping, getting things set up. But different things can happen, like the Admiral Zheng He's health. It's going to be possibly moving to the right. If it gets here, that's another way to trigger the end of the game. Sometimes there'll be storms. That's going to make it hard to sail through places, but you'll get story points if you get through them without losing any prestige. You may be resetting the dice. Lots of upkeep there. Now, a couple other things I want to point out is as you move up these tracks, you'll get to certain spots and you'll be able to take bonuses, like getting an additional ship or upgrading a card, so those will help you as well. And remember, you're also trying to get back to Nanjing, because when you do, this ship is removed, which is why you want to get those bonuses of extra ships. But again, for every tributary relation you have, you'll also get more of these, and again, building up that porcelain tower is victory points at the end as well. And the game will end at the end of the 9th round, or when his health gets all the way to the end, or if someone maxes out both of those tracks, or if you have 4 objectives completed. And whoever has the most points is the winner. Now, there's other variants. You can play a quick game, you can have a randomized setup, and you can also play a solo game as well. Well, there you have Ultimate Voyage Final Quest for the Treasure Fleet. And as I showed in the overview, it has an immersive historical theme, dynamic player interaction, replayability with 4 paths to victory and 4 distinct endgame triggers, and a wide array of random setups, events, and encounters, and also includes solo and quick play modes. Now, if you'd like to see the most up-to-date art and components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me in the description of this video. Now, that's going to help you bring you right to the project page, and I'm sure that Little Monks would love your support.